Hello, my name is Sam, and I want to share something very important with you. Today, I want to talk about learning English and why it matters so much. You might feel it's difficult or even impossible to learn, but trust me, it's worth it. I've been there, struggling and doubting myself. But I learned something that changed my perspective. English is not just a language. It's a bridge to opportunities. When I started learning English, I had one question in my mind. Why is this so important? I realized it's not just about speaking another language. It's about connecting with people from different cultures, understanding new ideas, and opening doors to jobs and education. English is a global language, and knowing it makes you part of a bigger world. At first, I was scared of making mistakes. I thought people would laugh at my pronunciation or my grammar. But one day, I decided to change my mindset. I told myself that mistakes are part of learning. If I didn't try, I would never improve. So I started practicing every day, even if it was just a few words or sentences. Learning English also helped me grow as a person. It taught me patience and persistence. I realized that every small step counts. When I learned a new word or understood a phrase in a movie, I felt proud of myself. These little victories kept me going and motivated me to learn more. So, if you are struggling with English, remember this: you are not alone. Everyone starts somewhere, and it's okay to feel frustrated. What matters is that you keep trying. Don't give up, because the rewards are worth it. And I'm here to show you that it's possible to succeed. Chapter 2: The Importance of English. Learning English changed my life in ways I never imagined. One of the biggest reasons to learn English is that it connects you to the world. Think about it. English is spoken in almost every country, and it's the language of international communication. Whether it's for travel, business, or making friends, English opens doors everywhere. For example, I remember the first time I spoke English to a tourist in my city. At first, I was nervous, but I managed to ask, "Do you need help?" The tourist smiled and said, "Yes, thank you." That moment made me realize the power of English. It allowed me to help someone and feel confident in myself. Another reason English is important is education. Many of the best books, videos, and online courses are in English. When I started learning, I found free resources like videos and podcasts that taught me grammar, vocabulary, and pronunciation. Suddenly, I had access to knowledge I couldn't reach before. It felt like discovering a new world. English is also essential for jobs. Companies look for people who can communicate in English because it's the language of business. Knowing English gave me better job opportunities. I could apply for positions that required talking to international clients, writing emails, and attending meetings in English. But the most important thing I learned is that English isn't just about speaking or writing. It's about building confidence and believing in yourself. Every time I used English, I felt stronger and more capable. And that feeling pushed me to keep going, even when it was hard. Chapter 3: My Struggles and Breakthroughs. Learning English wasn't easy for me. In the beginning, I felt lost. The grammar rules confused me, and I couldn't remember the words I studied. I wanted to quit so many times. But every time I thought about giving up, I reminded myself why I started. I wanted to improve my life, and English was the key. One of the hardest parts was speaking. I was so afraid of making mistakes that I avoided conversations. But then I realized something important. Making mistakes is a good thing. It means you're trying. I started practicing with friends and speaking in front of a mirror. Slowly, I gained confidence. Listening was another challenge. I couldn't understand movies or songs at first. The words sounded too fast. But I didn't give up. I watched videos with subtitles and listened to podcasts every day. Over time, my ears got used to the sounds, and I started understanding more. I also struggled with motivation. Some days, I felt like I wasn't making any progress. But then I learned to celebrate small wins. If I learned one new word or finished one exercise, I felt proud of myself. These little victories kept me going. The biggest breakthrough came when I started thinking in English. Instead of translating words in my head, I tried to form sentences directly in English. It was hard at first, but it made a huge difference. It helped me speak faster and more naturally. Chapter 4: Tips to Stay Motivated. If you want to succeed in learning English, staying motivated is the key. One thing that helped me was setting goals. I wrote down what I wanted to achieve, like learning 10 new words a week or watching a movie in English without subtitles. These goals gave me something to work toward. Another tip is to make learning fun. I found ways to enjoy the process, like listening to my favorite songs in English, watching entertaining videos, and playing word games. When learning feels like a game, it becomes easier to stay consistent. Finding a study partner also made a big difference. I practiced with a friend who was also learning English. We corrected each other's mistakes and encouraged each other to keep going. If you don't have a partner, you can join online communities where people share tips and practice together. Don't be afraid to make English part of your daily life. Label things in your house with their English names. Write your grocery list in English or talk to yourself in English. The more you use the language, the more natural it becomes. Finally, be kind to yourself. Learning takes time, and it's okay to have bad days. Remember why you started and focus on your progress, not your mistakes. Every step forward, no matter how small, is a step closer to your goal. Chapter 5: Never Give Up. If there's one message I want to leave you with, it's this: never give up on English. I know it can be hard, but the rewards are worth it. Learning English has changed my life, and it can change yours too. It's not just about speaking another language. It's about believing in yourself and reaching your potential. Whenever you feel like quitting, remember why you started. Think about the opportunities you'll have and the people you'll meet. Imagine traveling to new places, getting your dream job, or watching your favorite movies without subtitles. These dreams are possible if you keep going. Take it one step at a time. You don't need to learn everything at once. Focus on small goals and celebrate your progress. Remember that every mistake is a lesson, and every effort brings you closer to success. Surround yourself with positive influences. Read stories of people who learned English and succeeded. Watch videos of learners sharing their journeys. These stories will remind you that you're not alone and that success is possible. So, don't give up. You have the strength to overcome any challenge. Keep practicing, keep learning, and keep believing in yourself. One day, you'll look back and be proud of how far you've come, and that feeling is worth everything. Chapter 6. Overcoming Fear of Speaking. When I started learning English, the biggest fear I had was speaking in front of others. I felt embarrassed about my pronunciation and worried that people would judge me. I avoided conversations and kept my thoughts to myself, even when I had the opportunity to speak. However, I realized that this fear was holding me back. If I wanted to improve, I needed to confront it. So, I decided to take small steps. I began practicing simple sentences out loud, starting in the privacy of my room. Over time, I built enough courage to talk to a close friend who was also learning English. This first step made me realize that mistakes were not the end of the world. One day, I challenged myself to speak with a stranger. I remember the moment vividly. My heart was racing, and my mind was filled with doubts. But I reminded myself that even if I made mistakes, I would learn something valuable. To my surprise, the stranger smiled and appreciated my effort. That interaction was a turning point for me. It showed me that most people are kind and understanding, especially when they see someone trying their best. To improve my speaking skills further, I began recording myself. At first, it was awkward to hear my voice, but it helped me notice patterns in my pronunciation and areas where I needed to improve. Listening to myself also gave me the confidence to refine my speech. I paired this practice with listening to native speakers through podcasts and videos, mimicking their intonation and rhythm. Another technique I used was joining English conversation groups online. These groups were filled with learners like me, and the supportive environment helped me practice without fear of judgment. I learned new words, improved my grammar, and most importantly, gained the confidence to express myself. Over time, speaking in English became less intimidating and more enjoyable. Facing my fear of speaking taught me an important life lesson. Growth only happens when you step outside of your comfort zone. It's okay to feel nervous or make mistakes because every effort brings you closer to your goal. Today, I enjoy speaking English, and I'm proud of how far I've come. Chapter 7: Learning Through Mistakes. Mistakes used to feel like failures to me. Whenever I said the wrong word or used incorrect grammar, I felt embarrassed and frustrated. I thought mistakes meant I wasn't good enough or that I wasn't learning fast enough. But over time, I realized that mistakes are actually opportunities in disguise. Each error is a chance to learn and improve, and avoiding them only slows down the process. One of the most memorable mistakes I made was during a job interview. I was asked to describe my strengths, and instead of saying, "I am organized," I said, "I organize myself every day." The interviewer smiled and corrected me gently, explaining how to phrase it better. Although I didn't get the job, I left the interview feeling grateful because I learned something new. That small correction stuck with me, and I never made the same mistake again. To embrace mistakes, I started keeping a journal. Every time I realized I had said or written something incorrectly, I wrote it down and looked for the correct way to say it. This practice helped me track my progress and reminded me that every mistake was part of the journey. It also boosted my confidence because I could see how much I was improving over time. Another thing that helped me was asking for feedback. I used to avoid asking people to correct me because I didn't want to feel embarrassed. But when I started seeking feedback, I realized how helpful it was. Friends, teachers, and even strangers were usually happy to point out mistakes and offer advice. Their input became one of my greatest tools for learning. The biggest lesson I learned from making mistakes is that they are not something to fear or avoid. They are proof that you are trying and making progress. Each mistake brings you closer to fluency, and with time, they become stepping stones to success. Chapter 8: The Power of Consistency. Consistency is the secret to mastering any skill, and learning English is no exception. In the past, I used to study for hours one day and then skip an entire week. This approach left me feeling frustrated because I wasn't seeing progress. I realized that small, consistent efforts were much more effective than occasional bursts of intense study. I decided to create a daily routine that included practicing English for at least 30 minutes. Some days, I focus on listening to podcasts or watching videos. Other days, I practice speaking by describing my day or reading aloud. These small but consistent actions became habits, and they made a big difference in my learning journey. One thing that kept me motivated was tracking my progress. I used a notebook to write down new words I learned each day and reviewed them regularly. Seeing how much I had improved over time gave me a sense of accomplishment and encouraged me to keep going. It also helped me identify areas where I needed more practice, such as grammar or pronunciation. Consistency also taught me patience. At first, it was frustrating not to see immediate results. I wanted to speak fluently right away. But I learned that language learning is a gradual process. Each day, I reminded myself that small steps lead to big changes. Over time, the consistent effort paid off, and I started noticing improvements in my speaking, listening, and writing skills. The most important thing I learned about consistency is that it builds confidence. When you practice every day, even for a short time, you feel more prepared and capable. This confidence motivates you to keep going and take on new challenges. Chapter 9. Building Vocabulary. One of the most challenging aspects of learning English was building my vocabulary. At first, it felt overwhelming because there were so many words to learn. I didn't know where to start or how to remember them all, but I soon discovered that expanding your vocabulary doesn't have to be complicated. I began by focusing on the words I use most often in my daily life. For example, I learned the names of common objects in my house, phrases I needed at work, and expressions I heard in conversations. This practical approach made the process more manageable and immediately useful. To remember new words, I used flashcards. I wrote the word on one side and its meaning or a sentence using it on the other. I carried these cards with me and reviewed them whenever I had a few spare minutes. This simple habit helped me reinforce my memory and learn words more effectively. Another technique that worked for me was reading. I started with short stories and articles that matched my level of English. When I came across a new word, I wrote it down and looked it up later. Over time, I moved on to longer books and more complex texts, which helped me learn advanced vocabulary. I also made an effort to use new words in my conversations and writing. It wasn't always easy, but it helped me remember them better. Each time I successfully used a new word, I felt a sense of achievement that motivated me to learn more. Building vocabulary is an ongoing process, but it becomes easier with practice. By focusing on useful words, using memory techniques, and incorporating them into daily life, you can expand your vocabulary and improve your fluency. Chapter 10. Celebrating Your Journey. Learning English is a journey, and it's important to celebrate every step along the way. When I first started, I was so focused on my goals that I forgot to appreciate my progress. But over time, I realized that celebrating small achievements made the journey more enjoyable and kept me motivated. I started by rewarding myself for reaching milestones. For example, when I completed a week of consistent practice, I treated myself to my favorite dessert. When I finished reading my first book in English, I celebrated with a movie night. These small rewards gave me something to look forward to and made the process feel more rewarding. Reflecting on my progress also helped me stay motivated. I looked back at my old notebooks and recordings to see how far I had come. Hearing my earlier attempts at speaking English made me realize how much I had improved. It was a powerful reminder that hard work pays off. Sharing my achievements with others was another way to celebrate. I told my friends and family about my progress, and their encouragement meant a lot to me. I also connected with other learners online and shared tips and success stories. Being part of a community made the journey feel less lonely. Most importantly, I learned to enjoy the process. Instead of stressing about perfection, I focus on having fun and learning something new each day. English became not just a goal but a passion. As I look back on my journey, I'm proud of how far I've come. Learning English has been challenging, but it has also been one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. And I know that if I can do it, so can you. Chapter 11. The Importance of Listening. Listening is one of the most essential skills when learning English. At first, I struggled to understand native speakers because they talk so fast, and their accents were unfamiliar to me. I realized that improving my listening skills was not just about hearing words. It was about training my brain to recognize patterns and understand context. To start, I listened to simple podcasts designed for learners. These recordings were slower and used clear pronunciation, which helped me build my confidence. Over time, I moved on to more advanced material, like interviews and movies. One of the best practices I discovered was active listening. Instead of just hearing the words, I focused on understanding the main idea and identifying key phrases. I would pause and replay sections to make sure I understood them fully. This practice not only improved my comprehension, but also helped me pick up new vocabulary. Another helpful technique was writing down what I heard. At first, I would miss a lot of details, but with practice, my notes became more accurate. To make listening fun, I turned to music. I chose songs with lyrics and sang along while reading the words. This was not only enjoyable, but also an excellent way to learn pronunciation and expressions. Watching TV shows and movies with subtitles was another strategy that worked well. I started with subtitles in my native language and later switched to English. This helped me connect spoken words with their written forms, making it easier to understand. Listening to native speakers taught me more than just language. It gave me insights into culture, idioms, and the way people express emotions. For example, I learned that tone and intonation can change the meaning of a sentence. Practicing listening helped me feel more comfortable in conversations because I could follow the flow and respond appropriately. Improving listening skills requires patience, but the effort is worth it. Each time I understood a new word or phrase, it felt like unlocking a door to a whole new world. Listening became not just a skill, but a way to connect with others and immerse myself in the English-speaking world. Chapter 12. Finding Motivation. Motivation is the driving force behind any goal, and learning English is no different. There were times when I felt discouraged and wanted to give up. I doubted my ability to improve and thought the journey was too difficult. During those moments, I reminded myself why I started. I had a clear vision of my goals. whether it was traveling, improving my career, or connecting with people around the world. This clarity kept me focused even when the process felt overwhelming. One thing that helped me stay motivated was setting small, achievable goals. Instead of aiming to speak fluently in a month, I focus on learning 5 new words a day or completing 1 grammar exercise. These smaller goals were easier to achieve and gave me a sense of accomplishment. Every time I reached a milestone, no matter how small, I celebrated it as a victory. Another source of motivation was surrounding myself with positive influences. I followed social media accounts of successful language learners, joined online communities, and connected with friends who shared my passion for learning. Their stories and encouragement inspired me to keep going. Whenever I felt stuck, I reminded myself that everyone faces challenges, but perseverance is what makes the difference. Visualization was another powerful tool. I imagined myself confidently speaking English, traveling to new places, or excelling in a job interview. These mental images made the effort feel worthwhile. I also wrote down my reasons for learning English and read them whenever I needed a boost. This practice kept my focus on the bigger picture. Motivation isn't constant. It's something you have to nurture. Some days are easier than others, but the key is to keep moving forward. By staying focused on my goals and celebrating my progress, I found the strength to overcome obstacles and continue my journey. Chapter 13: Balancing Practice and Rest. When I first started learning English, I thought practicing all the time would lead to faster results. I spent hours studying grammar, memorizing vocabulary, and watching videos. However, this intense approach quickly led to burnout. I realized that balance was crucial. Taking breaks and resting my mind was just as important as practicing. Rest gave me the energy to stay consistent and allowed my brain to process and retain new information. I learned to structure my study sessions in a way that allowed for both focus and relaxation. For example, I would study for 25 minutes and then take a 5-minute break. This technique, known as the Pomodoro method, helped me stay productive without feeling overwhelmed. During my breaks, I would stretch, listen to music, or take a short walk. These moments of rest made my study time more effective. Another way I balanced practice and rest was by incorporating English into fun activities. Instead of always studying from textbooks, I played games, watched comedies, or explored topics I enjoyed, like cooking or travel. This approach made learning feel less like work and more like a hobby. It also helped me stay motivated because I looked forward to these enjoyable activities. I also paid attention to my mental health. If I felt stressed or tired, I gave myself permission to take a day off. I reminded myself that learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint. Resting didn't mean I was giving up. It meant I was taking care of myself so I could continue the journey. Balancing practice and rest taught me that progress is steady and sustainable when you take care of your mind and body. It's okay to slow down and recharge because, in the long run, this balance leads to greater success. Chapter 14, Adapting to Challenges. Every language learner faces challenges, and I was no exception. Some days, it felt like I wasn't making any progress. I struggled with difficult grammar rules, forgot words I had just learned, and felt frustrated by my accent. Instead of letting these challenges discourage me, I decided to adapt. I looked for creative solutions and focused on what I could control. When I struggled with grammar, I found ways to simplify it. Instead of memorizing complex rules, I practiced using them in sentences until they felt natural. I also use online tools and apps that explain concepts in easy-to-understand ways. By breaking down challenges into smaller parts, they became more manageable. Forgetting words was another obstacle, so I developed memory techniques to help me. I created associations and visual images for new vocabulary. For example, if I learned the word umbrella, I imagined myself holding one in the rain. These mental images made it easier to remember words. I also reviewed vocabulary regularly to reinforce my memory. Dealing with my accent was one of the most personal challenges. I worried that people would judge me for sounding different. But over time, I realized that having an accent is a natural part of speaking a second language. Instead of trying to eliminate it completely, I focus on clear communication. I practice pronunciation by listening to native speakers and repeating after them. Challenges are part of the learning process, but they don't define your progress. By staying flexible and finding solutions, I learned to overcome obstacles and keep moving forward. Each challenge taught me something valuable, and I became a stronger, more resilient learner. Chapter 15, The Journey Continues. Learning English is not a destination. It's a lifelong journey. Even as I reach new milestones, there's always more to learn and explore. Instead of feeling overwhelmed by this, I see it as an opportunity. Each day brings a chance to improve, discover new words, and connect with more people. This mindset has transformed the way I approach learning. One thing I've realized is that the journey is not just about language skills. It's also about personal growth. Learning English has taught me patience, resilience, and the value of hard work. It has helped me build confidence and open doors to experiences I never thought possible. These lessons go beyond language and apply to every aspect of life. Looking back, I'm proud of how far I've come. There were moments when I wanted to give up, but I didn't. I kept pushing forward, even when progress felt slow. Every effort, no matter how small, brought me closer to my goals. Today, I can communicate confidently in English, and I'm excited to keep improving. The journey continues because there is always more to achieve. I want to read more books, watch more movies, and travel to English-speaking countries. I want to learn about different cultures and share my own experiences with others. English has become a tool for connection and discovery, and I'm grateful for everything it has brought into my life.